Tonight, Donald Trump talks up the chance of peace in the Middle East, but Iran denies its officials have engaged in talks. Good evening, I'm Jennett with you from Ngunnawal country and acknowledging others with connection to the lands of the ACT. This is ABC News. Also tonight, the government relaxes diesel standards to help boost supplies around the country. A push for 50-cent public transport fares in Canberra fails. Australia signs a free trade deal with the European Union, but farmers say they feel let down. And the Raiders to be without Josh Papali'i again this week as he serves a one-week ban. US President Donald Trump has talked up the prospect of peace and oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz after declaring Iran is willing to engage in talks to end the war. After giving Tehran an ultimatum on oil, Mr. Trump backed down at the 11th hour, claiming very good and productive conversations were taking place. Markets then rallied on the news and the price of oil dipped, despite Iran denying talks were taking place at all. Well, shortly we'll have the latest on what our government's doing to shore up fuel supply. But we start our coverage tonight with Catherine Diss in the Middle East.
An unbelievable rescue. Red Crescent workers find a man completely buried in the rubble of a building in Tehran. Somehow, he's still alive. But the human toll of US-Israeli airstrikes is becoming starker on the ground.
We are looking for him, and we don't know if he's alive or not. Maybe he's dead, or I don't know where he is.
Oh, that came out good.
Taking a short detour from the war, Donald Trump visited Elvis Presley's Graceland.
You never know, these are hard to sign.
He earlier claimed he'd been in touch with someone senior in the Iranian regime for talks and announced a 5-day reprieve for Tehran to completely reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face attacks on its power plants.
They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We're going to get together today. If it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
We, the UK, were aware that that was happening, and the immediate priority has to be a swift resolution of the conflict.
But the Speaker of Iran's parliament immediately denied the talks. No negotiations have been held with the US, he says, accusing Trump of trying to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the US and Israel are trapped. Traders who coined the term taco, Trump always chickens out, seeming to welcome news of the president's backdown. While the US talks, Israel fights on.
President Trump believes there is a chance to leverage the significant achievements of the IDF and the US military. At the same time, we continue to strike both in Iran and in Lebanon.
But those living this war are losing patience with Mr. Trump's negotiation tactics.
If we trust him, we lose. He has shown what his brotherhood means. He burned everything, the good and the bad, together.
I doubt there will be any real negotiations between these governments. As for what comes next, I do not know.
While leaders talk, citizens are paying the price.
And Catherine Diss joins me now from Jerusalem. Catherine, those claims by Donald Trump about productive talks on an end to the war have been disputed, well, even denied by Tehran. What signs are there that talks could be on the way?
Good evening, Greg. Well, look, the US president's claim of a deal seems like a stretch. These talks are still very much in their early stages. There's also jostling over who will run them, with Pakistan interestingly emerging as a key frontrunner in that process alongside Egypt and Turkey. I think that Donald Trump played a game of chicken here, and when Iran didn't back down, he blinked first. He also has to consider his partner in this, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has vowed to keep fighting until the regime is toppled or at least significantly reduced. So this could be a political play by the US president, but reading between the lines, this looks like a win for Tehran.
Catherine Diss in Jerusalem, thanks for the update. Australia's Energy Minister says at least 500 petrol stations are tonight without fuel, announcing new measures to get more diesel to pumps across the nation. The supply squeeze is driving up costs across the economy, hitting farmers, truck drivers and now Australia Post, with price hikes coming for mail and parcels.
Counting his costs in kilometres. Frank Black's last journey from Brisbane to Sydney emptied more than his fuel tank.
If your fuel has gone up $1 a litre, you're $500 worse off.
And that's one day's work, forcing truckies to rethink which contracts they accept.
I can't drive up and down the road losing money.
The fuel prices are just crippling. It's just unbelievable. Sorry, I might get a little emotional.
Those costs rippling through the economy. Supermarkets, airlines and delivery companies hiking their fees. Australia Post, the latest, doubling shipping charges.
We know that increased petrol prices put pressure on Australians.
The sudden spike in prices leading to localised shortages. And across the country, hundreds of service stations are running dry. 215 in New South Wales without either unleaded or diesel. 185 in Victoria, 80 in Queensland, around 50 in South Australia and a handful elsewhere.
The Minister for Energy's made it clear that she's prepared to take extraordinary measures if she sees a deliberate manipulation of the marketplace.
Dialing up the pressure, the federal opposition's set up a new website for drivers to report where fuel shortages are.
We have launched this in an effort to help us, Chris Bowen, help you.
The nation's fuel coordinator, Anthea Harris, to hold her first meeting with states tomorrow as the Energy Minister intervenes again, this time adjusting diesel standards to boost supplies.
Because we continue to see shortages in diesel, despite the fact our national stocks are strong.
While the government's focus is on supply, leaders have started openly canvassing the possibility of measures to manage demand. Rationing is still a more distant prospect, but the states and territories have agreed to move together if it gets to that point. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
Petrol prices have already reached a record high, approaching an average of $2.50 a litre tonight. And there could be more pain to come if the source of most of Australia's fuel diverts deliveries for local use. Here's business reporter Daniel Ziffer.
We've got enough fuel for now, but there are big questions about our fuel security in the coming months. Australia imports 90% of the fuel we use. Most of it comes from Asia, with South Korea, Singapore and India our biggest suppliers of refined fuels, including petrol, diesel and jet fuel. While most of the crude oil that's still refined in Australia comes from Malaysia and Brunei. But those countries have their own demands.
The entire global economy has been taken hostage, and we will all pay a price for the hostilities.
China and South Korea have already started curbing the export of refined fuel products to keep more of it for their own citizens. Malaysia says it might as well.
When a government sees a threat to the availability of domestic supplies, it's not surprising to see these constraints implemented.
Energy Minister Chris Bowen has said only 6 fuel shipments to Australia, due after mid-April, have been cancelled or deferred. That's out of an average of 81 per month. But the conflict has taken out about 1 in 5 barrels of oil from global supply. And the longer that continues, the more expensive things get. Australia can afford to compete by paying higher prices. Poorer countries have fewer choices.
Australia has a really strong track record around that, delivering into contracts, and I think that holds our stance within the global energy markets in a fairly high level.
Another point of leverage is liquefied natural gas. We produce far more than we use. We're among the largest exporters in the world. Some of the countries that send us fuel need our LNG, so there could be some hard bargains to be driven.
Daniel Ziffer there. And here in Canberra, prices are also rising. Diesel has reached more than $3 a litre in parts of the ACT, while unleaded petrol is above the $2.50 mark in many locations. The ACT Legislative Assembly has been debating the best way to ease the pressure, including a proposal to introduce 50-cent public transport fares.
As the cost to fill up rises, so does the incentive to use public transport.
So I've parked my car at Gungahlin and caught the public transport in just because can't afford to drive in, can't afford to park in.
The Canberra Liberals wanted to make catching a bus or light rail even more appealing, proposing to slash fares to 50 cents during the current fuel crisis.
50 cents? Yeah.
But 50-cent fares make it a lot easier to get to and from work.
Some of the solutions are expensive, but I don't recall when we were in the middle of the COVID crisis, I don't recall people asking questions about how are you going to pay for these emergency measures that are required right now.
The Greens wanted to go even further, making public transport free, with the federal government footing the bill.
If we were to offer up free public transport, I think the community would embrace it. There's a need for it.
The Territory government takes a different view.
Our focus is on improving public transport services. What the government's focused on is improving the frequency of public transport services. Well, the ACT government's focus is on improving services.
In the end, the Assembly voted largely for the status quo in the short term. No free public transport and no 50-cent fares. Instead, MLAs voted to lobby the Prime Minister to get the Commonwealth to cover the cost of reducing fares, while the Territory government will now also consider free public transport for concession card holders. As the fuel crisis continues, a growing number of Canberrans are opting to work from home.
We're calling on the Public Sector Commissioner to make sure that agencies are facilitating a common sense approach to approving working from home applications.
But more people working from home means a drop in the number of people coming into the city and spending money there.
If this situation prolongs itself and becomes a long-term working from home position, then that is going to have real impacts on businesses.
A crisis showing no sign of easing. Monty Bovell, ABC News, Canberra.
After 8 long years of negotiations, Australia has signed a new free trade pact with Europe. But the deal has drawn fire from farmers who are furious they haven't secured better access for agricultural products. Here's Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jennett.
A new deal in a world transformed. The European Union chief landing in Canberra to deliver a grim message.
The world we live in is brutal, harsh and unforgiving. It feels upside down.
Faced with war in Ukraine and the Middle East and grappling with Donald Trump, Europe wants more partners, even in far-away Australia. The two sides finally landing a long-awaited trade pact after almost a decade of negotiations.
Countries are longing for stability and predictability, and this is what the European Union is offering.
This agreement sent a message as well to the world that it is possible to stick to the rules.
The deal will allow Australian farmers to largely keep using labels claimed by European producers like Prosecco and Feta. Luxury European EVs will also be cheaper. The pact opening up new export opportunities and cutting the price of imports.
This agreement is worth $10 billion to the Australian economy on an annual basis.
But some economists question that figure, while farmers are furious the government's given way without securing new concessions to get more Australian beef and lamb into Europe.
It really is a very minor number, which is frustrating.
This deal must go down as the worst trade deal ever.
It's not just trade. Australia's also preparing to join a massive European research and development fund, while Canberra and Brussels have struck a new security partnership which will likely foster more industrial collaboration in defence projects. With the world in flux, both sides increasingly see the relationship not just as a luxury, but as a necessity. Stephen Jennett, ABC News, Canberra.
Dozens of Canberrans have rallied against the prospect of suburban development on Canberra's so-called Western Edge. The Conservation Council describes the Western Edge as almost 10,000 hectares on the fringe of the city, bordered by Western Creek, the Molonglo Valley and Belconnen. The ACT government is considering the area for future residential development. The council says development in the area would lead to more suburban sprawl and that it's a crucial habitat for threatened plants and animals. Victorian public school teachers have gone on strike for the first time in over a decade after months of failed pay negotiations with the state government. Up to 35,000 educators marched through Melbourne towards state parliament a week after the Australian Education Union rejected a 17% pay deal. Union members claim Victorian teachers are paid less than those in other states and have called for a 35% raise over 4 years. Organisers say hundreds of schools were affected by today's industrial action and have threatened to take to the streets again if the government doesn't revise the offer.
They do need to put a real deal on the table that meets our needs, that respects us and absolutely respects the students that we educate.
This is a very strong offer. We did everything we can to avoid today. We did everything we can to get the offer on the table as soon as possible.
Queensland is banning under-16s from riding e-scooters and e-bikes in the toughest laws of their kind in the country. All riders will need a learner's licence and those breaking the rules will face significant fines. The crackdown was sparked by several deaths, but some riders say the changes go too far.
Getting a handle on dangerous behaviour.
Because it seems to be a pretty wild west at the moment with scooters.
We know there is considerable community concern. The major crackdown includes banning under-16s, requiring all riders to at least have a learner licence and making it mandatory to be medically fit.
It should be licensed and then helmet should be a must thing.
If you're going to be driving on the actual roads, you need to understand the road laws and the road rules.
But some are worried about the changes. Ben Fallon has epilepsy and was previously medically unfit to drive and became reliant on his e-bike. His kids are also avid riders.
It makes me nervous because it would heavily impact our day-to-day lives. It would impact our holidays where we go bikepacking and we have to take a lot of equipment.
While he's got his licence back, he fears he could lose it again if he fails future medical tests.
Well, the e-bike is kind of like my main car. It does the grocery shopping, takes the kids around, takes me into the city to appointments.
I acknowledge that will disadvantage some people who currently use these devices and are unable to drive. Doctors back age restrictions.
We have seen a significant number of injuries and tragically deaths.
Other reforms include random breath tests for riders, giving police the power to destroy illegal devices and cutting footpath speeds to 10 kilometres an hour. Parents will be held accountable for the actions of their children.
Some level of onus needs to be put on parents.
These laws are the toughest in the country and they come with hefty on-the-spot fines, including $500 for not having a licence or riding an e-device while under the age of 16.
This government response will strike the right balance between safety and allowing new forms of mobility.
Jack Mackay, ABC News, Brisbane.
US investigators say they want to interview an air traffic controller who was also dealing with another emergency when An Air Canada jet collided with a fire truck. The video shows the moments leading up to the collision that killed 2 pilots at New York's LaGuardia Airport. About 40 passengers and crew were taken to hospital, some with serious injuries. Before the collision, an air traffic controller can be heard on airport communications frantically telling the fire truck to stop. About 20 minutes later, the controller appears to blame himself.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my staff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
At least 66 people have been killed after a military transport plane crashed in Colombia. The Hercules C-130 came down moments after taking off at an airport near Colombia's southern border with Peru. 121 people, mostly soldiers, were on board, with dozens injured. 2 Colombian Air Force planes were deployed to the area to take wounded troops to hospitals in the country's capital, Bogotá. Officials have launched an investigation. To finance now, and the local share market rose today in line with markets around the world in the wake of President Trump's post that talks are underway to end the war in Iran. Here's Alan Kohler.
As we know, President Trump posted at 7:23 a.m. Washington time that they've had very good and productive talks with Iran, and that a few hours later Iran said that's not true. The US share market jumped when Trump did that post and then fell a third of the way back when Iran rubbished it. And likewise, the oil price fell sharply and only went up part of the way again. So what that tells you, I think, is that the markets really want it to be over, which is no surprise, and are prepared to grasp at any straw and hang on to it. A couple of other straws in the wind today, as it were. First, investment bank Goldman Sachs put out a new oil price forecast based on traffic through the Straits of Hormuz staying at 5% of normal levels for 6 weeks, followed by a 1-month recovery. The result is on this graph. It peaks at $115 a barrel. But if it stays at 5% for 10 weeks, the peak is $147. Second, one of the world's most highly regarded investment strategists, Marco Papic of BCA Research, said if this doesn't get resolved over the next 7 to 10 days, we're looking at a pandemic-style shutdown of the global economy, which perhaps explains why markets are in the Egyptian river, denial. That's not something anyone wants to think about. The local market demonstrated that by rising 0.5%, with mining stocks leading the way. The oil price ended up around 4% higher, while gold and silver kept falling. The US and Asian markets stayed up, and the Aussie dollar stayed under 70 US cents. And finally, Macquarie Research produced a report today about the impact of AI on bank employment, looking at how good it'll be for cost-cutting and higher profits. The most likely base case, according to Macquarie, is 18% reduction in jobs, gradual adoption 9% and rapid adoption 30%. Now, there are 185,000 people employed by the banks. 18% of them is 33,000 and 30% is 56,000 people. But of course, Macquarie could be wrong. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson, the computer program deciding the fate of elderly Australians seeking care.
Mum does need supervision pretty much constantly. It just astounds me that somebody can then be found to have no impairment.
My concern is really because there can be no human oversight of the outcome. It's the same thing as what was happening with RoboDebt.
To sport now, and the Canberra Raiders have enlisted the help of referees at training this week to get to grips with the league's new rules. The Raiders have struggled with early season discipline, committing 22 penalties in 3 games. On Sunday, for the second time this season, the side will be without prop Josh Papali'i after he accepted a 1-match ban for his careless high tackle on Bulldogs prop Samuel Hughes. The suspension sees Morgan Smithies get his second start of the season, coming in to replace Papali'i as starting prop.
We got to adapt, and the only way to learn is kind of playing footy at the moment. So in the early days, we'll get it right, hopefully. We just got to, I think we got a ref coming out tomorrow to help us with training, so we just got to learn it.
A maiden T20 international century from Georgia Voll has helped Australia complete a clean sweep of the 3-game series against the West Indies. Opening the batting, Voll hit 6 sixes in her innings and made 101 off just 53 balls as Australia posted 7 for 211. T20 debutant Lucy Hamilton took a wicket as the Tourists won a rain-affected game by 40 runs under the DLS method.
We made a really, considered effort tonight to go out there and play with a sense of freedom, I suppose, and see what we're capable of, and to get over 200. Yeah, I suppose that's really pleasing for the whole group, that's for sure.
In the AFL, 8 players have now suffered hamstring injuries during round 2, prompting suggestions the pace of the game could be to blame. West Coast has confirmed rookie Milan Murdoch is the latest to suffer the injury, as several clubs deal with the fallout from the weekend.
A power win sapped by an injury loss.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts. He's a captain of the footy club.
Connor Rozee will need surgery for a high-grade rupture to his hamstring tendon and will likely miss most of the season.
It's disappointing and sad for us, but we'll kind of have to move on.
Despite playing out Sunday's win, scans later revealed Milan Murdoch has suffered a hamstring strain. The rookie became the 8th player from 7 games to injure their hamstring in round 2. It's raised questions over the speed of the game and the ability of players to adapt to new rule changes this season.
Some may say it's too fast, some may think it's too slow, but us as players, it's our job to get fit and play, and then if you get injured, it's just all part of it.
It's not only injuries Essendon has to contend with. After another thrashing, Captain Andrew McGrath called a players-only meeting.
Us leaders, we spoke about, OK, this is on us. The basic fundamentals of football, handballs, kicks, pressure, that wasn't there on the day, and that's something that's in our control. So it was all about us taking ownership of our performance.
Patrick Voss has taken some ownership for this sledge on Saturday, according to Fremantle. The Dockers have thrown their support behind the energetic Voss, who's been criticised for taunting Melbourne's Harrison Petty.
Obviously there's stuff going around about him, but I think he's pretty remorse about it, and we like him playing how he is, and we know he can get a bit fiery, but at the end of the day, it's just a game of football.
A game that can get personal. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
Now, around this time last night, many of you noticed a fairly dramatic confluence of cloud and light over the territory. Lee from O'Connor caught the front edge of low-level cloud passing underneath some wispy high cloud. And from Monash, Kirsty, even more spectacularly, brought a southern perspective on the same phenomenon. Well, a little cloud lingered around Canberra today with a high of 27 degrees. Generally warm throughout surrounding regions. Wagga Wagga hit 30, Young 28, Goulburn 26, which was also the common high in a lot of coastal areas. Hobart was the wettest city and the coldest of the other capitals, only making it to 17. Brisbane had showers and 29, cloudy and 27 in Sydney, so too in Melbourne. A clear 33 in Adelaide today, 26 in Perth. Well, no sooner had tropical cyclone Narelle left far north Queensland and another trough out in the Coral Sea is pushing yet more storm clouds onto Cape York. Much of eastern New South Wales is covered in patchy low-level cloud. It's mostly hugging the Great Dividing Range. Melbourne can expect rain and a possible afternoon thunderstorm tomorrow. Adelaide could be in for a light shower. Cloudy and 30 in Brisbane. A clearer day ahead for Sydney with 28 there. Perth's warming up again, expecting 32 degrees tomorrow. The afternoon could bring unsettled weather to southern parts of New South Wales. Rain and then some storms afterwards are possible in Merimbula. possibly even across the range into Cooma too. A few millimetres of rain might fall up in the high country around Thredbo and Perisher. Further north, Bateman's Bay is looking cloudy and 28. In Canberra, there's about a 40% chance of light afternoon or early evening showers. The Bureau suggests up to about 2 millimetres, and possibly a late thunderstorm as well, going for a high of 27 degrees. We have 12 hours and 6 minutes of official daylight on Wednesday. Then plan for rain to settle in on both Thursday and Friday, with a sharp drop in temperatures, clearing up after that for the weekend. And that's the latest from us for this Tuesday. Stay with us for 7:30.